Hello and welcome to those who are just tuning in to the Women's Biz Tribe Success Summit. My name is Annie Gibbins, CEO of Women's Biz Tribe, and we are so delighted to have you joining this session. Many of our sessions, the speakers have absolutely blown my mind. So impressive, so much value. Thank you to those who have been commenting, asking questions, putting them in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're all using different platforms, and that's the great thing, that we are able to share this message around the topic of success principles around the globe through this summit. So welcome aboard. Welcome to those who are just tuning in now to hear our next amazing speaker. Her name is Jean Adams. Jean is a business mentor and empowerment coach. She is seriously obsessed with empowering female entrepreneurs in their 50s and 60s and 70s to gain the clarity and confidence that they need to enable them to elevate their business growth and achieve their dreams and goals. She is all about mentoring women who may have an existing business, as well as women who are creating new businesses, and how many of us are doing that post-COVID. So she's all about helping them leverage out of working in full-time employment into working for themselves, so they can get that beautiful balance in their life as they move on to, times in their life that they're wanting to actually just, do some more things. Might be more time for themselves, more time with family, grandkiddies, whatever, hobbies. I'm going to hand it over now to beautiful Jean, and she's going to be sharing with you today all the way from New Zealand.
Thank you, Annie. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. As Annie mentioned in her introduction, I am passionate about empowering women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s to courageously step into their power and purpose and magnificence, so they can confidently create a heart-centered life and a business that brings them joy and abundance on their terms. I'd like to begin today by asking you a question. How courageous do you feel you are? Brené Brown tells us that courage is showing up and letting ourselves be seen. As a woman in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, do you sometimes feel as if you aren't very brave and you really don't have a voice? Or that the voice you have is drowned out by all the other noise that is out there in the world, especially on social media, where so much of our connection and engagement takes place these days? When I first began to prepare what I was going to share with you today, my thoughts were focused on how we view success, what success means to you, which is the main topic of this summit. Yet when my voice almost disappeared earlier this week, and forgive me, it's still a bit croaky today, it struck me as symbolic that many of us, especially women over 50, sometimes feel metaphorically that we don't have a voice at all. Do you feel that way sometimes? Do you feel as if you have so much to say, yet you don't feel confident or brave enough to share what you think and feel for fear of judgment from others? Or because you feel as if you don't have the experience or the knowledge or even the right to say what you think and feel? I'm sure I'm not the only woman who is older than 50 who has often felt like this. As a child, I was very quiet and reserved. You see, I was born into a generation where children were encouraged to be seen and not heard. It took me really until my early 30s to really find my voice. Thankfully, in the few decades before that, women such as Gloria Steinem and Germaine Greer had begun to create a foundation and a space for women to have a stronger voice and be able to speak up for themselves. It's interesting that in this past week, as those of us of my generation particularly reflect on the impact the late Queen had on the world we grew up in, how much her living example of putting the service of others before her own needs impacted how we as a generation grew up and formed our own beliefs and life philosophies. Yet the world is changing so rapidly these days that it can feel even more challenging to find our voice. Do you feel like that sometimes? As a woman of a certain age, do you sometimes feel as if you have all this wisdom and knowledge inside of you, but you really aren't sure how to share that wisdom? Or even if you should, and you wonder if it's best to perhaps bow out gracefully and leave the space for younger, more courageous generations to take the stand. I believe there's a place for everyone to have a voice, no matter what age we are. It's just a matter of being brave enough to follow what your inner voice is telling you to do. You see, the problem is, with the way life has been for women over 50, is that we've become so ingrained in living with the habits of keeping everyone else happy and doing what we feel is the right thing so we won't be judged or criticised, that we've forgotten to listen to our inner voice. Yet, what if you actually stopped listening to the rules of societal expectations? What if instead you closed your eyes to what is happening outside of you and listened instead to what your inner voice, the voice of your heart, is guiding you to do? You know, that feeling we often refer to as gut instinct. Think of times that you've listened to your inner voice, despite what others around you might have said. What happened? Do you remember feeling not only brave, but a tremendous sense of peace and calm about the next steps to take? I know I have. I've had situations in my life where all external advice told me that the choice I was making was wrong on so many levels. Yet I chose to follow my inner voice anyway. I did this a few years ago when I packed up my life in New Zealand and moved to Melbourne. I've always loved Melbourne for its arts, its culture, its physical beauty and historic architecture. Yet this move was a much deeper calling, a true sense of being guided by something much bigger than myself. And the amazing thing was that when I was following that voice, in the 5 short weeks in which I packed up my life in New Zealand and moved across the Tasman with 3 suitcases, it felt right, so right. I can still remember this deep sense of not only joy and excitement about my new adventure, but also a deep, deep feeling of calm and an inner knowledge that I was doing the right thing. Now, obviously, I moved at the end of 2019, and I didn't know that 2 months after I moved, there were going to be intense bushfires, which limited what we could do, followed by an incredibly long lockdown due to the pandemic. And yes, again, I listened to my inner voice with the wise guidance to return to New Zealand early last year before the borders closed. Now, some people would see that experience as a failure because my dream ended sooner than I planned. Yet I don't regret that enormous heart-guided move at all. The experience actually taught me that sometimes our life path may take a circuitous route, and we may travel through the darkness in the woods. yet we are always guided back to the path we are meant to be on. And that brave move also gave me the opportunity to find a stronger voice. Strange, seeing I was in a completely different country. Yet the warmth and encouragement of the people that I encountered in Melbourne made me realise that what I had done in moving countries later in life was actually very brave. Whereas I hadn't felt that or really thought about that at all, because I'd just been following my inner voice. Isn't it interesting how we perceive the experiences we have? I invite you to think for a moment about an experience you have had where you followed your heart, your gut instinct, your inner voice, whatever you call it, that led you to having a truly heart-centered, joyful experience. Whatever the outcome, looking back, do you regret that choice? I somehow doubt that you do. Because when we make choices from our hearts and take action to make those choices a reality, we usually find that we feel brave, strong, and purposeful. What would your life look like if you were courageous enough to follow your inner voice? How would you feel if you bravely spoke, thought, and acted in a way that is true to who you really are? Always remember that when you follow your inner voice and stand up for yourself, you stand up for and inspire others to be brave and discover their brave voice as well. When you leave here today, what is one action that you can take that involves you stepping courageously into your power and potential by listening to your inner voice? I encourage you to be brave and to live your life courageously, following the voice of your heart. I'd like to leave you with a quote by Maya Angelou, which is relevant to what I've shared with you today. She was a woman who, despite many changes and obstacles in her life, chose to be brave by listening to her inner wisdom and by speaking up with a powerful voice, inspiring others to do the same. Courage is the most important of virtues because without it, no other virtue can be practiced consistently. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jean. That was absolutely, brilliant. A brilliant opportunity to reflect on, our voices, the strength of our voices, how often we just sort of hold them back. How easy it is to just be spending our time doing what other people expect, thinking, oh, there's no point me sharing what I really want, or sometimes even being at stages of your life that you haven't even unpacked what you want, what that actually represents, to actually know that voice. I think you've touched on so many aspects, and I absolutely loved your questioning that you've used through this presentation. So those of you watching in, listening in, oh my goodness, I hope you had your pen with you. And if you didn't, you can definitely go and watch this replay, because those questions are really going to take you on a journey. There were so many pertinent questions there to ask yourself. And a lot of those is, how will you show up differently if you start using that voice? Find that voice, use that voice, strengthen that voice, those words that you were using, Jean. Absolutely get to know it more and then get to love that voice. I love the boldness that you shared, that, which would have been scary at the time, that you suddenly went, I'm going to go to Melbourne because I think I'd love it. Something that I can imagine everyone going, what? And I've done that sort of thing in different stages of my career. I remember, having a job that everyone thought I'd got the best job I was ever going to get in my life because it was like, so fantastic. And then I went, no, I'm going to leave it and go to something else. And that feeling when others that you value actually then go and say, no, that's not right for you, or that wouldn't be good for you. And what a breakthrough moment it is when you go, you know what, I'm just going to see how it goes. I'm going to back myself here. I'm going to trust my gut. And then the growth is just phenomenal since there. And I just love it. You've gone and done your journey, in times of, that's right, bushfires, changes, and that's it. Life's unpredictable. If you plan it out too much, it'll always come unstuck somewhere. There'll be something that will throw a curveball, which is actually normal. And it's through that, and I'm sure you found that, Jean, through those times that you actually went, oh my gosh, I learned so much about myself because of the things that I wasn't expecting, because they're the moments you've really got to, rise above and push through and make it happen. And some of them are hard, some of them are painful, and others are like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing all my life? I should have done this 20 years ago. I know that sort of comment is very common, but so thank you so much for your sharing. I've absolutely loved it. And for those of you wanting to reach out to Jean, you can find her at jeanadams.com.au. And she would love to share with you, definitely, if you're a lady in your 50s, 60s, 70s, at different stages of transition, you're thinking, I actually do need to learn how to become more courageous. I do want to become stronger in knowing what my voice is and how it could really enhance my life moving forward, my happiness, because that's success, right? We're at a success conference. It is successful to be able to go, I'm successful because I actually know who I am. I'm happy to use my voice. I'm happy to use it in a specific way at specific times. And I'm happy to do that uniquely and authentically. And Jean is actually the queen at being able to help you do that. So I encourage you to reach out to Jean, jeanadams.com.au. Also, you'll find her in Women's Biz Tribe. So everyone coming to this summit, you're already a complimentary member of Women's Biz Tribe. So definitely you'll find Jean there. Also put a comment in the chat. Thank you for joining at this summit today, Jean.